2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Thank you very much, Mrs. Riham Edib, for moderating such an insightful session.
Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, we will move forward with our agenda, and our next panel is Financing the Future, Financial Vehicles to Support Investment in Egypt. As you all know, financial instruments play a crucial role in driving private sector growth in Egypt. The country benefits, obviously, from extensive support provided by development partners, including the European Union and its financial institutions, as well as individual EU member states. This support manifests through a range of financing mechanisms, such as grants, technical assistance, soft loans, and guarantees. To fully leverage these financing instruments and maximize their impact, it's essential to address the knowledge gap that may exist among private sector actors. Strategies should be devised to bridge this gap, ensuring that businesses and entrepreneurs are aware of the available financing options and understand how to effectively access and utilize them. By addressing the knowledge gap and facilitating the utilization of these financing instruments, the private sector in Egypt can be more empowered to unlock its full growth potential, further contributing to the country's economic development. For this session, I would like to introduce Dr. San Bilal, Associate Director for the European Center for Development Policy Management. He will be moderating this session with a panel of high esteemed guests. Hello, Dr. San. Thank you very much for being with us. As we're getting the stage set for the next panel, let me give you an idea of the participants and the panelists on the session. First of all, Her Excellency Dr. Rania Al-Mashat, Minister of International Cooperation. Gert Jan Koopman, European Commission Director General. Gelsomina Vigliotti, Vice President of the European Investment Bank. Jurgen Rigterink, First Vice President of the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. Khaled Abu Bakr, CEO, TAQA Arabiya, and Amir Mishriky, Managing Director, Ezdehar PE Fund. Please join us on stage to start the discussion. So, Dr. San, you'll be sitting at the very end, on the right end, followed by Mr. Khaled Abu Bakr and then Mr. Jurgen. And you can easily know your seats through the pictures in the backdrop.
So thank you very much. It is my pleasure to moderate this panel. We had yesterday a lot of very important declarations and exposition of what is the vision and the ambitions for the partnerships, investment partnership between Egypt and the EU. I've realized it was all over the media yesterday, on television, and this morning in the newspapers. So very large ambitions, but the question is how are we going to implement? What are the tools, what are the instruments that we have, and how can we finance and help support all these investment ambitions that are there. And this is the focus of the discussion that we will have now on this panel. And in particular, we know that there is no investment and no growth without the private sector. So how can we connect and harness the energy of the private sector? And let me turn first to Your Excellency Al-Mashat, and I will perhaps paraphrasing a bit the title of the conference that we are in. How can development partners help unlocking Egypt's advantages? And what is the kind of strategic initiatives that you have been putting in place to try to engage the development partners, and in particular the EU, to support your vision of attracting investment in Egypt?
Well, thank you very much, and another welcome to everyone to this panel. I will maybe repeat a few of the points that I made in the opening session. Just this morning at 8 a.m., all development partners were with us in a roundtable to basically discuss our ongoing work and also talk about the future. Development partners in Egypt, whether our bilateral colleagues or multilateral development banks, and Team Europe, since this is the Egypt EU conference, Team Europe includes the bilateral institutions and also the EIB and the EBRD as key multilateral institutions in Europe. The cooperation between Egypt and all our partners is underpinned by very clear national strategies with priorities which are set by the government, and therefore we need to underpin the word country ownership. It's very, very important that as we are thinking about projects, thinking about new potential going forward, that the country is ready for it, and also that we are able to weave in projects that actually meet these national objectives. So that's a very important point. Number two, that as we are talking about the future, we are coming from a very, very robust and strong partnership with everybody. And this is not just in reports, no, this is practical, on-the-ground projects which are done with the private sector. And number three, that in order to enhance trade and enhance investment, what we need is finance. And we just heard from the previous fire chat and from what we discuss always in international fora, that concessional finance is key. Concessional finance is key to be able to de-risk private investment. Concessional finance is key to be able to also create public-private partnerships. And this is what we are also seeing in Egypt through our partners teaming up with the private sector to deliver on very important projects. I will conclude so I can leave time for others, that strategic sectors of interest to Egypt and the EU and to the rest of our partners include the renewable energy, include the green hydrogen, include food security, water security, and also everything that's related to digital. With all of our partners, they are involved with us also in our country platform, the Nexus of Water, Food and Energy, which is very, very important as a flagship where you can see concessional finance going to the private sector to deliver on national climate goals, which also always address the global goals as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Koopman, Minister Al-Mashat mentioned the importance of cooperation, partnership, but also about concessional finance. I understand these are two dimensions that are very dear to your heart. So the EU has been in recent weeks, in fact, announcing a large number of packages for substantial support, comprehensive support to Egypt. Could you identify and tell us what are the kind of instruments that you have at your disposal and how you would like to deploy them?
Thank you very much, and good afternoon to everyone. The financial instruments need to be seen as an integral part of our strategic and comprehensive partnership, and they serve the strategic objectives of this partnership. So the money and the policy are not just linked, they're actually integrated. There's about 7.4 billion euros under this partnership, consisting of 3 elements. First, support for the sovereign through 5 billion euros worth of macro-financial assistance that is very much anchored on Egypt's reform agenda, aligned with the IMF program. And that's essential because many of the preconditions for investors to come to Egypt are related to the type of reforms covered by this assistance package, be it macro-fiscal to ensure the stability of the country's macroeconomy, or the structural reforms which are critical for being able to operate in a sound business environment. The second pillar is consisting of guarantees, blended finance and other support, allowing to mobilize about 1.8 billion euros of support, of investments through support that works through our international financial partners, 2 of whom are sitting on this platform. This is essentially a mix of guarantees, grants for blending, and loans that can be facilitated in this manner. And the attraction of using this instrument is that with relatively limited hard budget money on our side, through a significant leverage effect, both at the level of the IFIs who put their own capital to work, but also the private sector that has to complement this with its own resources, we can mobilize a relatively large amounts of money. Here it's important to note that this 1.8 billion comes in addition to 3.2 billion that are still available. So for the next years, until the end of 27, this financial firepower will enable investments up to 5 billion euros. And this morning when we discussed, I was happy to underline that if we are successful in pushing this, we will contemplate intensifying the support, because there's a very ambitious agenda here, huge opportunities. The final piece is grant support for projects to the tune of 600 million euros over these 3 years. So there is a substantive package of financial support addressing the needs of the comprehensive partnership, which in turn is anchored on Egypt's priorities. So we're working hand in hand with the Egyptian government on this. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Mr. Rigterink, the EBRD, European Bank for Construction and Development, it's your bread and butter to work on transformation. You have excelled on that in many different places. What are some of the challenges that you have encountered in Egypt, and how do you think they can be overcome?
Thank you for the question, and very good to be here. Let me actually not directly answer the question, but let me, I think hopefully there's still many investors here in the room. And of course, you want to invest in Egypt, you're here listening to this conference, but many of the things actually have not been really been said. Investors, they want stability, they want consistency, they want continuity. And we as EBRD, we have been here now on the ground for about 10 plus years, and we have invested about 12 billion so far in the country, which means each and every year we invest about 1 to 1.5 billion euros in Egypt. Of course, we have a different mandate, and of course, we have a different risk appetite. And I do understand if some of you are still slightly concerned about Egypt. And actually, EBRD was also slightly concerned about Egypt because the country was facing many challenges. And I don't need to mention them because I'm sure you all know them. I have to say, what I've seen the last 6 months, really, I should almost stand up and applaud. Because what the country has been doing, and of course with the support of the UAE, the 35 billion IMF program, and of course also with the support of the EU, has been remarkable. And for you as investors, just one of the consequences was, for example, the liberalization of the exchange rate. extremely important for you if you want to invest in a country like Egypt. Having said that, even in the so-called perceived difficult times, EBRD's portfolio, both on the equity and on the loan side, was remarkable resilience. And our NPLs, its non-performing loans, actually was lower than the average of our entire portfolio. And just to almost conclude, Egypt for us is just not one of many countries. For us, it is a top 3 country of investments. So of all our 35 countries, Egypt is one of our most important ones. And about 10% of everything we currently have outstanding is in the country. So we really, we focus with you guys on the private sector. We are very confident that actually what has been happening here in the country will continue. And by sitting here, we also give the country some kind of a stamp of approval. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As we are continuing these opening statements on the panel, let me turn to Ms. Vigliotti. The European Investment Bank, as the EU bank, has also been involved for many years in Egypt. What do you see as the way to improve your engagements and support the changes that are happening in Egypt, so that they can go perhaps faster to the next level in these transitions? And what has been, in your view, perhaps hampering these developments so far, and what are the prospects for moving faster?
Thank you very much, and good afternoon to everyone. As EIB representative, we are very happy to be here and to participate in this two-day conference, which celebrate it's an important partnership between the European Union and Egypt. As the European Investment Bank is the bank of the European Union. We are the financial arm of the European Union, and we pursue the objectives of the European Union also outside of the EU. And with Egypt, actually Egypt is the country outside of the European Union where we invest more. We have a long-standing partnership with Egypt. We are present in the country since 1979. But let me focus just on the last few years. Actually, we invested a year on the tune of 1 billion per year. And over the past 4 years, we devoted 2.8 billion to the private sector. We have a large range of instruments that we can use to support the economy. We can on-lend to the public sector. We can on-lend to the large corporates. We can on-lend to the small and medium enterprises, and I want to come back on this point because it's very relevant. And also we can also indirectly intervene with equity product by participating in private venture capital and private equity. Let me focus for a while on the small and medium enterprises. We know that small and medium enterprises are the backbone of economies in many parts of the world, not only here in Egypt, but also in Europe. And actually we cannot reach all these entities, small entities, directly, and we used to work with them through the banking sector. And I think that it has been extremely relevant under our experience that through the collaboration with the banking system, the financial institution, we are able also to implement some policies. I mean, to push the private enterprises towards a green experience, and also to support the for informal economy to come out of the informality, so that entering into an institutional relationship with the financial institution, it's also their ability, to build and to grow up. So to us, this has been is a very useful instrument. And but talking also with the relationship with the public sector, we have been one of the major investors in transport system, in sustainable transports. And we know in a highly populated country as Egypt, how relevant is to to work on building a sustainable infrastructure, in particular on the railways, on the metro lines. We know how traffic is congestion and how, through, for instance, the railways and the metro, we can contribute to the achievement of the climate objective that everyone has, but also to improve the quality of life. And by remaining in the area of climate-friendly support, I'm very proud to talk about it's a project, an initiative that we just signed this morning. It's on how to support the manufacturing sector, the corporate sector, to reduce the pollution, to reduce the CO2 emission. And this is something which is relevant not only for the Egyptian economy per se and for the way of life of people who can benefit of a better climate and to benefit also from is a functioning circular economy, but also because, it's also is an instrument to support the exports to Europe. You know that now Europe has quite a strict regulation also for the climate content of our imports. And I think that establishing this sort of a partnership with the corporate sector, it will be very useful. Actually I understood that two main messages came out after the discussion in the plenary by the president of Egypt, that is to support the private sector and also to support the private sector to export. And I think that, by working together, by mobilizing all these financial and policy levers, I think that we can provide the necessary support to the economy. And obviously, we are very keen to continue on this support with Minister Al-Mashat. We committed to lead on the transport sector of the NWAFI program, and obviously to work with all other IFIs, so that we believe very much in the coordination and this idea of having a platform where all the IFIs can work together and to exploit their best opportunities for everyone. Thank you. I'm sorry.
Thank you very much. We'll get back to some of the elements that you mentioned in the discussion. Mr. Bakr, we have here a lot of Europeans very happy to help supporting the private sector. Could you tell us what kind of support you need, and what is the kind of experience that you had with development finance? For what kind of activities you think this is really important, and how it could be perhaps even boosted and be made more effective?
Thank you, Sam. Thank you very much. Actually, Egypt is a very big market. It's a very big economy. And typically, the economical growth and the social growth are coupled with demand on energy growth. And in order to secure this demand and align as well with the sustainability goals that Egypt is aligned with, we need to have a mix of energy and we need security of supply. And that is the importance of the renewable energy and its role on this context. It's security of supply for the local market first. Of course, we are working as well with our partner in EU that Egypt will become a hub not only for the gas, but as well as a hub for renewable energy and hydrogen. But essentially, the prime market, we are a big market that need a lot of renewable energy. So from that point, we as TAQA, as one of the largest private energy distributor, we are reaching 2 million customers, mainly they are household or industrial or commercial or touristic. It was very, very important that we launch ourselves on the renewable energy. So we deliver based on a P2P, private to private, or B2B, business to business. And our customer typically would compare the price of the renewable energy to the highly subsidized energy presented by the government. So having a proper soft loans, and our experience was fantastic with EBRD and IFC and others on supplying this kind of equity and loans to different projects. So today, in addition to the BIM project, where we've been together with the Alam, with Hassan Alam Group, the only Egyptian developer, we are providing renewable energy to agriculture facility, to industrial, to hotel, and to residential as well. Especially in a hotel in Sharm el-Sheikh, for example, we were working with most of the hotel on the rooftop to install renewable energy. And these kind of projects at the beginning would need a very strong support for our European partner. One of the area where we still need some support from Europe, and I do understand that there are more restrictions on gas utilization. But in Egypt, we consider gas as a very important fuel in the transition process. So we might have different point of view about that, but financing gas infrastructure or project is not anymore viable by our friends in EIB or EBRD for the future. So this is one of the points that we keep an open dialogue with our partner, and we expect that we hopefully we can reach a middle way where we can finance as well gas project in addition to the gas and hydrogen. Recently, this morning, TAQA with Voltalia, which is a French European company, we have signed a framework agreement with the government of Egypt. So this is a big investment of more than $2.5 billion, and will require around 1.2 gigawatt of renewable solar and wind. So we are very proud to have this partnership with the European company and this support from European banks.
Thanks. And perhaps, I mean, was there in the agreement that you have with the European companies, was there a need for some development finance, or are you?
No, the agreement we have with Voltalia, this is it's a teamwork. We have the local experience as an operator and maintenance on the ground, and already we operate several activities. And Voltalia, French company, they have a very good experience on renewable energy and the green hydrogen as well. So it's a win-win position. So together we are one consortium that we have signed with the government of Egypt.
Yeah, thank you very much. I just wanted to stress that because while our discussions will focus on the role of development finance, it's very important to remember that private sector engage with one another and do a lot of operations outside of development finance, and that there is not a need for development finance to be everywhere in every deals in all the activities.
But they're important.
But they are important in some of the activities, and that's what we're trying to identify here. Mr. Mishriky, well, I mean, you are as a private equity fund as Ezdehar, you are involved in some of the riskiest type of investment and providing finance for risky type of investments that are really needed for the innovations and for the development of the country. What is your own experience with the development finance, and what do you think is their role and the synergy between your activities and what they are doing?
Thank you, Bilal. It's a pleasure to be here on this panel and with the distinguished list of guests. Actually, our experience, and just for background, at Ezdehar, we invest in Egyptian mid-cap companies. We deploy around $10 to $15 million per investment. We focused on medium enterprises, and these, by default, are companies with sort of in the mid-stage of their maturity and development in terms of management and organization. And it takes a lot of time and effort with them in order to transform them into sustainable corporations. Once we invest in a company, yes, it is the most riskiest. We take on the downside risk and the upside risk of the investment, similar to any other shareholder, including that of business performance and also unforeseen events like currency devaluations, because we invest in dollars and euros, and these are what our LPs and DFIs expect us to return. So we've been investing in Egypt since 2016, but of course our experience dates back to tens of years in operations and investing locally, regionally, and globally. Now, more specifically, our involvement with DFIs has been very special. We found that they have been at the forefront of promoting private equity and venture capital in Egypt. They have been the biggest investor and sponsor of these two asset classes in the past 10 years, and they have been promoting investments unlike others. Like other investors may have shied away, but DFIs have been there and strongly, heavily vested in these segments. As a testimony to that, they've invested, and more specifically EIB and EBRD, along other DFIs from other countries. They've invested $80 million in our first fund, which started in 2016. They invested $150 million in our second fund, which started in 2022, bringing their total investments to more than $200 million. They also help promote and attract other investors. So in our funds, we have local family offices, high net worth individuals, and also local commercial banks. And they did the same on the VC landscape. So they managed to front and be one of the first investors in Algebra Ventures back in 2016, and in Sawari, and later on again in Algebra Ventures. Now, a very important characteristic about DFIs is that they have a commercial mindset. So they force us fund managers and investee companies to have a very returns-driven philosophy. And imagine we have to make returns, and attractive ones, on the dollars and euros that they give us. And this is what would create our institutions and the companies more sustainable, which is quite challenging and has been challenging in the past 10 years. Another important aspect of DFIs, and one of the ways they benefit the economy, is that they come in with a very high environmental, social, and governance standard, or rather known as ESG. And they provide training, they provide technical support, both to fund managers and to investee companies when it comes to ESG matters. They also do technical assistance, and we've been beneficiaries of that technical assistance. I can give you a few examples. We had technical assistance on gender equality. One of the portfolio companies had technical assistance on sustainable manufacturing, and a third family business had technical assistance on how to create a corporate governance roadmap. So overall, I think DFIs have been very important to the PE and VC landscape in Egypt over the past 10 years. Investments from funds like ours into different sectors have boosted these sectors, and this includes healthcare, hospitals, pharma manufacturing, education, food and beverage manufacturing, retail, non-bank financial institutions, fintech, e-commerce, and other tech-enabled businesses as well. It's been a great partnership, and we look forward to continue this.
Great, thank you very much. We've done the first round, so I will invite all of you to, let's have a more direct conversation, so we're not forced to follow an order. And Mr. Rigterink, you want to react? I just want to stress that I think the last point that was mentioned, that the advantage of development finance is not just the financing side, but it's also the expertise and the know-how that seems to be also extremely important, which of course you have and deployed at the EBRD.
It's nice when a moderator is actually promoting free flow, so thank you for that. I also want to say to Amir, thank you for doing the marketing for IFIs, and it's good to see you in a tie, by the way, because private equity firms, they don't like ties. having said that, and now on a serious note, concessional finance, I think what Amir was saying about private equity, meaning risk capital, this is truly something which we as IFIs should do, because we also once in a while hear that IFIs, DFIs, they don't take sufficient risk. So here we have an example where if we wouldn't have come in, then there probably wouldn't have been a still developing private equity industry in Egypt, but let's call it also the region. The other point I wanted to make on concessional financing, or first maybe a point to investors, and then I go to NWAFE, because there I wanted to link it to concessional finance. Egypt is actually a place, we've seen here the last 2 days, we've seen many signings, we've seen many MOUs, and some of you might wonder, oh yeah, there we go again. No? And I'm not a particular fan of MOUs, because most of the times they don't lead to anything. I can tell you, in Egypt, it is slightly different, because I go back to the COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh, where many of you were present, and where actually the NWAFE concept was born, or was signed. And EBRD, we are in the lead for the green pillar there, and I can tell you that in some of the sub-pillars there, we're actually ahead of what we wanted to do. We, and for those of you who are not particularly knowledgeable about NWAFE, basically it is a program where we want to invest in 10 gigawatts in renewable energy, but simultaneously get rid of 5 gigawatts of fossil fuel plants. And we actually have started already doing this. The first 3 gigawatts in terms of renewables are already in the planning. We're already there. So a real example of where we together, and the EU has been supporting this, where concessional financing, actually it's not only the 1.5 billion coming in from concessional finance or IFIs, because we cannot change this world, we cannot change Egypt. But because of our involvement and our risk-taking, about 10 billion in private sector investment will come to Egypt. And we are doing it right now.
Jurgen, can you be a little bit just more specific on what you're doing on the energy pillar of MWAFI? Because do you manage, I mean, is it something that you do just by yourself, or do you manage to attract investment by Egyptians as well, or by European companies? How in practice? Could you tell us in practice what does it come? And then I'll turn to you, Minister, to explain, in fact, what you were putting in place, because the great interest of MWAFI is that it is not led or invented by development financiers, but it is a country-owned platform for investment. But how does it work in practice for you on your involvement?
It's actually quite complex, and actually Dr. Rania is probably even better positioned to answer that question. But just to, I already mentioned some of the elements, but I also mentioned something which is very important for Egypt, for the social cohesion, that is just transition. So one of the points is, no, we can want all these things, but we've seen it also in Europe, also in the EU. When you're going too fast in green energy, or when it becomes too expensive for the people, then they will rebel. So here we actually have a concept which puts everything together, and that makes it so unique. So it is affordable, but also the people who are currently working in coal-fired power plants, they will be reskilled, and the list is long. And this, to be honest, this is why we as EBRD are so proud to lead that particular pillar. But to your question, do we do this alone? No, of course not, because this is so massive. We particularly need the strong support, not only from institutions like the EU, but the government plays a critical role there.
Mr. Bakr, are you involved in MWAFI directly, or are you directly involved in MWAFI on the energy pillar?
Not yet. No.
Not yet. So, Dr. Al-Mashat, can you explain, what was your vision when you thought about it, and how do you attract the development financiers?
Let me maybe just say something more broadly, and I want to emphasize 3 Ps. For those who know me, the letter P works nice with acronyms: platforms for policy, projects, and practice. So let's emphasize each one of those. Policy is very, very important, and it's only when you have proper policy will you be able to move forward, change that into a project, and when you sometimes face difficulties in a project, you know which policies you need to change. So there's a very important relationship there, and currently, because macroeconomic stability was mentioned on the panel, in addition to macroeconomic stability, there needs to be structural reforms that push the potential for the private sector, and that's why with the World Bank, with the EU, the MFA, and also with other development partners, including the African Development Bank, our Japanese colleagues, and the Koreans, we have identified our structural reforms under 3 pillars. The first is macro-fiscal resilience. The second is improving competitiveness and the business environment. And the third is supporting the green transition. So these are 3 key pillars. And under them comes policies which push each one of the pillars so that you open up the potential for the private sector. So that's the policy related to financing packages, if you will. And the policies are going anyways, but these are the ones that are mostly advertised. The second is the development finance and the relationship with the financial institutions would not have been so significant to the private sector unless the government had a good relationship and a credible relationship with all of them. And this is another very important point. When I'm working with the World Bank, with EIB, with EBRD, with that, they know that they have a counterpart that they can rely on. And this was very evident, and I always say this, when we had some of the difficulties over the several months, we were together as one. There was not, a blame game, if you will, but no, we had our partners trying to find solutions with us to particularly help the private sector in many instances. So the very strong and credible relationship with the government allowed the different institutions to also push their frontiers with the private sector. And pushing it is not just on the financing, but also on many of the reforms we did. I go back to 2014. If it weren't for the feed-in tariff, which was a policy change advocated and supported by IFIs that were working in Egypt at the time, we would not have had bin ban. And if we did not have been banned, we would not have been doing the strategy for green hydrogen with EBRD and the EU, which is now pushing us to different types of projects and MOUs that are being signed today. So there's a process, and this process comes or underpinned by the credibility with the counterpart, but also the different reforms where we are trying to push private sector engagement. I want to just, because of the audience, say, everyone's hearing concessional finance. What forms and what instruments are available? We see a lot of credit lines to the Egyptian banks. EIB, EBRD are very active with the commercial sector in Egypt, with the banking sector in Egypt, and these find their way to the private sector, including SMEs. And when we say private sector, it's the big corporates, it's SMEs, and then there are the startups. And now, as we move forward, there's also startups related to digital and clean and fintech and all of that. So credit lines through the banks. The second is also the loans, which are low in cost, which go in different ways. And then third, we have investment in capital, as we saw in Ezdehar and several other companies. And there are some big companies which have benefited from investments in capital from different institutions. And then in many instances, we have guarantees. MIGA comes in with guarantees that has actually helped push projects on renewable. And hopefully what we are going to be doing with Gert and the EU is the next investment guarantee with the EU is also going to be able to push and unlock a lot of the potential. Two more points. Different IFIs are able to work together on one project in Egypt. And this is a very important aspect for us.
How did you manage? Because it's sometimes not necessarily easy to get different DFIs to go
it's been a long relationship, and the private sector knows the governance of the institutions. The institutions also are very keen to make business. So even though there are different governance procedures for the different partners, but they are able to work together on one project. If I take Noafi, one of the private sector projects in Abydos or Aminot, we have commercial banks, we have the institutions, we have guarantees. So and we have those from the east and those from the west. So again, it's a compelling project, it's a credible project, and the IFIs are able to work together. So these are some of the points that I just wanted to make. Instruments are plenty, credibility is key, policy underpins and pushes the ability to design more projects, and going forward, again, everybody is trying to work together to innovate with new instruments. And then finally, the technical assistance and the capacity building are key. They are very useful when it comes to also putting together the feasibility studies, and we have that in plenty ways. And then there's a lot of also country-country collaboration when it comes to what we can, particularly on Noafi, scaling it to other countries, which is taking place. And then finally, debt swaps is another innovative tool that we have been able to use, and it is part of the platform Noafi, and this is a way also to show that you can use debt swaps for climate action in a very practical manner.
Yeah, which you did with Germany, KfW, if I'm correct.
Germany,
yes, that's also a good level of instrument. I mean, just having talked to many of the finances, development finances, including some that are on this panel, they were telling me that without the ownership and the drive from the Egyptian governments such a platform will not be able to operate properly.
And then finally, everything is published. And we did accountability because we launched it in 22. A year later, in November 23, we published our progress report that shows each and every commitment. That's because there was someone was saying there's the risk of MOUs. But in this case, we want to make sure that every year we are providing the progress because we want it to be, it's not just a moment of a COP 27, but no, it's the momentum.
Transparency along the process is key for you, yes?
Yes, absolutely.
And before you go to others, I have to react on one comment you made. How do you make sure that two IFIs work together? Because there was a little criticism in that, no? I mean, and I'm sure ERB also would have mentioned that, and that criticism is absolutely valid. I believe it's fair to say that we're not always very efficient, not always effective. Sometimes we can even be viewed as bureaucratic. Please push us on that, because you need to actually push up. And how is it possible that EIB or IFC and EBRD are working? Actually, our shareholders, including Gert, the EU, they actually want us to cooperate better. So one of the things we are currently doing with EIB is to see, because working together, everybody can say that, no, we actually look at something which is called mutual reliance. So if EIB is in the lead, why should EBRD not be able to accept some of the work they have been doing, and vice versa? I know it sounds very easy. I see some people saying, yes, so what? No, it's not that easy, because obviously we all have our own governance structure, and that means also we need to trust each other, we need to have derogation, etc. But our shareholders want us to do this. We really, really should make a big push for that this year, next year, because why are we doing this? For our clients, and it is to the benefit of you. Sorry to interrupt.
Thank you very much. Just perhaps for, oh no, you wanted to react, or I wanted to give the floor to Mrs. Vigliotti on partnership. Perhaps just from your side, because indeed I've followed closely the evolution, and we've seen really the EIB and EBRD working much closely together, but more broadly I would say EIB is involved with many different partners at the European level and also in the region. Could you say perhaps a few words about your strategy in this respect?
No, definitely. First of all, let me underscore what Jurgen just said now. And actually, it's our shareholders that are asking us to work together, because actually our shareholders are the government of all countries. Also, Egypt is a member of the EBRD, and we know that public resources are scarce, and these public resources have to be used efficiently, and that's why it's our commitment as IFIs to work together, and so that our processes are more efficient, and that each institution can exploit better its comparative advantage, because there could be institutions which are better to do in some fields and others in other fields. But also it's very relevant the partnership that we have with the bilateral development financial institution. Let's not forget that it's and for instance the project that I talked about on the sustainable industry here, it's a cooperation with, for instance, the Agence Française de Développement, and there are many other projects upon which we work with the other institution, and actually this is something which can exploit better the resources that we have on the table. And sometimes there are a big project, like for instance, let me focus on renewable energy. And for instance, it's so much relevant for Europe, to invest in the Mediterranean and in Egypt on these resources. We realized after the invasion of Russia in Ukraine that, being dependent from just one country on energy is something which can put at risk, it's the affordability of energy for someone. And As EIB, we are the climate bank. We stopped financing fossil fuel since 2019. So to us, it's extremely important to push even further the production of renewable. And in the Mediterranean, and especially here in Egypt, there are many opportunities. You know, the EBRD is leading on the energy pillar of the NWAFI, but also we are very active, for instance, on hydrogen. We know how hydrogen can be an alternative source of energy, and for instance, we are working, we already signed off-takers contracts with the Norway, between a Norway company here in Egypt and some Egyptian off-takers, so that, I mean, we can provide support to development of an alternative energy.
I have the organizers that are making signs that we have to try to wrap up, but I just want to get very quickly.
Last comment, yeah.
Yes.
Because I misunderstood your question again. Yes, we are involved in the WAFI portal, of course, and it's very important. We've been part of the brainstorming team with the ministry, and thank you, Dr. Rania. One last message that I want to leave to our European partners here, that there are ocean of opportunity of investment on the renewable energy. Don't wait for the government to give you the project. The government is important to guarantee the project, but go chase your own rabbit. We are doing this business to business, private to private. Ocean of opportunity, and we are a role model as TAQA, but the opportunity is very big for everybody.
Mr. Mishriky, just in one word also, what would be your advice to the European private investors and companies that are here on the way forward for Egypt? And then Mr. Koopman, you can conclude.
The message is very simple. I think fellow DFIs have sort of paved the way, and they've demonstrated that Egypt is very ripe for investments. In our fund, we have around 6 European DFIs. As explained, yes, it's been hard to get them around each other, but they've managed to do it, and we've managed to progress. So there are many opportunities, and Egypt is quite ready for this at the moment.
Mr. Koopman?
I would like to make a point about how all of these strands are interlinked and how you should look at these dynamically. I mean, basically, the vision of the government is to open up the country to private sector investment. And I think the type of instruments that we deploy need to follow that trend. You will be asking, are the framework conditions for this larger private sector investment share actually going to be in place? And there, the Egyptian government's reform plans are actually anchored in the support the international community is affording Egypt through the IMF program and through the MFA program that we will be deploying. Incidentally, the MFA program will be larger than the IMF program. So these links are important because that provides you with guarantees that these reforms will actually be happening. It means that the sector will be opening up gradually, that you will be having space to go in. The IFIs will be evolving the instrument kit. We, from our side, together with the government, as we do also in other countries and other theaters, work together to ensure that there is coordination amongst the IFIs. In fact, we could even step that up. This morning, we all met together to do that. So what you should realize is that there is a partnership of all the institutions and people on this side of the platform that will accompany this process and ensure not only that it's guaranteed so that you have comfort that the conditions will be in place, but actually also that the financing piece itself that you will need will evolve in function with what you will be requiring. And I think that's a very important message to you. So Egypt is open for investment, but actually the people here sitting on this side of the platform, especially the minister, of course, will be making sure that you'll be assisted through our joint efforts.
Thank you very much. The concluding last words for Dr. Al-Mashat, because we're here in Egypt and you were in the drive. Perhaps if you could just say one word on the importance of gender inclusion, especially in this audience where I've seen it's quite unbalanced in terms of gender balance, but the last words for you because it's here in Egypt.
I would just conclude by thanking all our partners and thanking the private sector for being innovative in the projects and taking the risk. On gender, that's a big topic, but everybody's also involved when it comes to supporting businesses led by women, providing technical advisory. Even one of the transport projects that was financed by EBRD got a prize for also being very mindful to gender. So when we did a mapping of ODA to SDG, SDG number 5, and this is all published, by the way. I'm very, proud that everything we do is published. It's on our website. People can find this information. SDG number 5 gets a sizable amount when it comes to direct projects, but also indirectly. Each and every project has, again, serving women for better gender equality in its heart.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you all. Sorry we didn't have more time, but thank you very much for your insights, and best of luck.
We really thank you for this fruitful discussion, and we hoped it would have gone longer, but unfortunately we have a full schedule today. Thank you again, and we will now have a little short than an hour break. We should be back at 2:30, so we'll be having a 45-minute break for lunch and networking. This will take place in the B2B and the B2G rooms, and after lunch, we will resume right here in this main hall with the technology and entrepreneurship session. And in parallel, the food and water session will run in the breakout room. Thank you again, and I hope to see you at 2:30 exactly so that we keep the schedule on time. And apparently there are some items that our teams found, I think a passport, a laptop, and other personal items. Please make sure that you communicate with our staff to be able to collect those items. Thank you again, and see you at 2:30.